If you find yourself unemployed, you want to get back into the workforce as quickly as possible. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some tips on how to speed up your job search. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Life After Layoff, and today I want to share with you some tips on how to speed up your job search so you can get back into the workforce as quickly as you possibly can. Because let's face it, being unemployed or being in a toxic work environment is one of the most stressful things that you can go through. And then you have to add a new job search on top of it. It ranks right up there with going to the dentist. But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more career-related content just like this directly from a corporate recruiter, maybe hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any future content. So if you find a way to this video, it's likely that you're unemployed, or maybe you're trying to get out of a bad situation and you just want to speed up the process and get it over with. First thing that you want to do, and this is really a necessity for any job seeker, is you have to optimize your resume, because having a generic resume in today's labor market simply won't cut it. And you have to take the next step to truly stand out from the competition. So what does optimizing your resume even look like? Well, of course, we all know about these ATS systems that have a particular way of screening out candidates. So we have to make sure that our resume is compliant with the ATS system, and there's a lot of different components involved in that. I made a recent video about resume tips that you should check out if you're wondering what ATS systems are looking for and what some of those best practices are. So I'll leave a link somewhere up here and you can go and check that one out. But even more important than having an ATS compliant resume is that we want to have a custom resume. Now, it's important to note that an ATS system is generally not going to be screening out your resume so much as a human is, but we want to make sure that the ATS system is seeing our resume correctly so that we can be discovered at a future point in time. More importantly, if there's a large group of candidates, we want to make sure that our resume is pulled to the top of the pile. For example, I ran a recent ad for a very senior position and got 700 applications in 24 hours. So there's no possible way that I could go through all of those applications in a timely manner. So I start to search my ATS system for some very specific criteria. And if you're optimizing your resume, it's more likely that you're going to pull up in my search when I try to narrow down my candidate pools. So simply put, if you want to speed up your job search as fast as possible, you got to get in the habit of customizing and optimizing your resume. And if you want to speed things up even faster, the next thing that I would do is I would have multiple resumes. So in a normal job search, a lot of us have different specialties. We can do a little of this job, a little of that job, but we don't want to send a resume that shows us being a jack of all trades, because typically that will dilute your results. We'd rather be a great fit for that particular role. And if you happen to be a great fit for more than one role, create multiple resumes. And that way you're sending a more targeted resume to the hiring manager who may have a higher likelihood of taking an interest in your profile. And remember, this plays in line with, we don't want to be sending out the same generic resume to all these different jobs that we're applying to, because you're probably not going to have the best results that way. The next tip from an efficiency standpoint is to narrow down to a couple of job boards that are most relevant to you. And I would pick a well-known job board, maybe like Indeed, LinkedIn, or Google Job Search, because what typically happens is when an employer posts an ad on their website, on their corporate career page, it propagates out to a bunch of different sites, and it'll send it off to some pretty obscure sites that you probably never heard of. And then it'll also send it off to the major boards. If you find yourself doing a really deep job search and you're going down all these rabbit holes with these very niche sites that are kind of unheard of, what you're basically doing is wasting your time, because it's very unlikely that this job is only going to be posted on one niche site. In fact, the employer probably doesn't even have a contract with that site. They have a contract with a bigger propagation site. So when I would post jobs, they would sometimes show up on these job boards that I'd never even heard of before, because it was a service that we paid for. So if you're trying to speed up your job search, don't get bogged down with so many different job boards. Just focus on the biggest ones, because I guarantee you, you're going to find all the jobs there. And while you're at it, I would recommend that you also cut down on the number of jobs that you're applying to, because if you're somebody that's panic applying, in other words, you're applying to any job that's even remotely interesting to you or that you think you're remotely qualified for, you're really diluting your results, and all that time and energy that you've been spending applying to these jobs would be much better spent trying to build out your networks on LinkedIn. Because here's the blunt reality of the market. You're likely not going to get called for a job that you don't closely match. And I'd say probably 70% or better of the job description. So applying to these jobs where you don't have any relevant experience and you think that an employer is going to read into your resume and try to pull out some possible transferring skill is probably a shot in the dark. And honestly, it's just not good time spent. It's really just going to slow you down and make your job search that much more difficult. And not to mention, you're going to burn yourself out, and all you're going to do is generate another rejection in your inbox. And if you're worried about mental health, and let's face it, getting rejections can really affect you. it's probably not the best way to go. So focus your time on those jobs that you're really well qualified for, because realistically, those are the jobs you're going to get called for anyway. The next thing I do to speed up my job search is I create templates. Now, I'm not talking about resume templates, because in general, I don't feel like most resume templates are very good and they can actually hurt your job search efforts. However, what I'm talking about is templates that I might use when I'm communicating back and forth with hiring managers and recruiters. So I might go in and set up a custom signature in my Gmail where I can automatically populate confirmations and other communications. And when you're applying to a lot of jobs and you're trying to do a lot of that networking, it can be pretty arduous to keep on having to fill out the same things over again. So I look for any efficiency tips that I can, and that's one that I really use. So get in the habit of creating some templates in your email that you might use, or maybe even create a separate Google Doc and you cut and paste in what you need based on the person that you're communicating with. And then be sure to add in a little customization so that you don't seem like you're too robotic. And while you're at it, that's actually another tip, which is finding some efficiency tools. So I already talked about how I use Gmail and Google Docs to speed up my job search, but I also track all the jobs that I apply to and in which stage I'm in on a simple Google Sheet. Basically, it's an Excel spreadsheet that keeps me organized and lets me know where I'm at in each process. If I need to nudge a recruiter to see where I am in the status, I can send off a quick note, or if I owe them something for some stage of the interview process, it keeps me organized. I also live and die by things like spell check, and that's where Grammarly comes in. And I actually use Grammarly personally because it keeps me out of a lot of trouble, because I will not win any awards for my grammar or my writing. I'm the first to admit that. But what it does is it analyzes your writing and rearranges it and makes you sound more fluent than you really are. And trust me, I need all the help I can get. And another cool piece of software that I use is called MailTrack, and it allows you to track when a hiring manager or a recruiter opens up your email. So if you're communicating with recruiters and hiring managers, you can actually see whether or not they've actually opened the email that you've sent them. So it takes a little bit of that guesswork out. It might be bad for your mental health if they read it and reread it but never respond to you, but maybe you want to know what the status is on things. And the last thing that I do personally is I make sure that I set up alerts, because I don't want to spend too much time going on job board after job board every single day, hitting the refresh button. It just gets to be tedious and arduous, and sometimes not great for mental health, especially if you're not seeing a lot of jobs posted coming up. And if you're somebody that does like to go visit random niche job boards, it can save you a lot of time by setting up an alert, because just about every one of them does. You can go in, you can set up alert for a keyword or a job type, and then they'll just email you whenever the job postings come up. And you can also do this on most companies' ATS systems as well. So if you have a company that you're really interested in, set up those alerts, and you can usually be pretty early to apply, which is always preferable. You don't usually want to be pretty late in the application process because they may have already identified a candidate. So setting up those alerts is a major time saver and definitely one that I would check out. All right, so those are some tips to get you back in the workforce as quickly as possible. Now, if you're somebody that is applying for job after job and you're just not getting any responses or any bites on your resume, especially if you're reasonably qualified for the roles that you're applying to, it's almost always a resume issue. And I actually created a course called Resume Rocketfuel, and it's designed to teach you how to write a resume that's going to give you the best chance of having that recruiter notice you and then call you for that first round interview. And then once you get that first round interview, it's then up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of the interviewing process. And that's where the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp comes in. It's going to take you through each step of the interviewing process, give you tips and techniques on how to ace each round, ultimately to get you to that job offer, and then try to negotiate the best possible deal for yourself. And the good thing about that course is I actually teach you some negotiation skills that can help you get your money back for the course. So that's always a bonus. And you're also going to improve your interview skills while you're at it. But if you want to skip right to the front of the line, the best way to do it is to get the recruiter to come and find you. And that's where unlocking LinkedIn comes in, because it teaches you how to get noticed on the platform so that recruiters can start contacting you. It's also going to teach you how to unlock the hidden job market and potentially skip the recruiter altogether. So if you're struggling with your LinkedIn game and you're not having much luck there, highly encourage you checking that one out as well. Hopefully these tips get you back to work as quickly as possible. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.